All right. Perfect.
Oh, good.
I'm good. All right. One last. There we go. Yep, I'm ready. What's up, Dolphins fans? Want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving and a happy NFL season, because that's what it's been for the Dolphins, right? This is Chris Perkins here, your Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist. That's Dave Hyde, your Sun Sentinel columnist. And look, here we are, November 22nd. Dolphins are in a share of first place in the AFC East with Buffalo at 7-3 records, but the Dolphins have that victory over Buffalo. Tua Tagovailoa been on fire the last 3 games, passer ratings of at least 135 in each game. 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Dolphins are taking advantage of the soft part of the schedule with this 4-game win streak. This Sunday, they host the Houston Texans, who are 1-8-1. Now, the Dolphins, when we say that this is the soft part of the schedule, remember, they also have some quality wins early in the season. So how much can you allow yourself to dream after this week if the Dolphins get the victory? We talked about this a little bit last week with David Furones. Now the picture is a little bit more clear. And can you think about the Dolphins securing a playoff spot if they beat Houston and move to 8-3? They're pretty much in. And at that point, can you start thinking about a playoff victory? Whole lot of stuff on the table today. Let's dive in. So, Dave Hyde, let's start off with Tua. And, you've written a couple of really good columns about Tua recently. He's, for the season, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, leads the league at 118.4. And what I want to ask is, let's look ahead with Tua. Can you expect, Dave Hyde, a 2-to-1 touchdown to interceptions ratio the rest of the way? Can you expect a 3-to-1 touchdown to interceptions ratio the rest of the way? What are you seeing from Tua, and what should we expect in these last 7 games, Dave Hyde?
What's he, 6-to-1 right now? Is that 18-3? I'm not good at math, but I think that's 6-to-1, isn't it?
Right.
So look, that ain't going to continue. You expect. He's answered all the questions to this point in the season that you really could have asked. Can he become a legit starter in the NFL? That's been answered. Can he become a trend toward a top tier starter? Yeah, that's really, how high is the ceiling? I guess that's what we're at. And I get my whole issue with Tua is the parade's always out there about 3 plots ahead of where I'm ready to say he is. And maybe that's me, because the parade's been right this year. Okay. We're going to be moving up in weight class, not this game, not Houston. Houston's the 31st ranked defense. Okay. So, and you look at the defenses they played of late, a good quarterback, good offense should tear them apart. They've played in the last 3 weeks, Detroit's the 32nd ranked scoring defense, Cleveland's 30th, and Chicago's 28th. So these are defenses a good offense takes apart, and the Dolphins took them apart. That's what you should do. After Houston, you step up, and there's San Francisco waiting. The Chargers are the 29th ranked defense, so there you get good defense to get. But then there's Buffalo, there's cold weather, there's a big game. So. Absolutely, if you're the Dolphins, you're thinking playoffs. You'd be crazy not to. Tua's thinking Super Bowl, and I love that. I love that. Somebody's thinking big like that. The question, of course, is, are they ready to make that leap? But look around the league. How many great teams are there right now? I do my stat sheet every week. I have 9 stats and rank the teams, based on like red zone trips, first downs, fourth quarter scoring, percentage of sacks, offense and defense. The Dolphins are ranked the 17th, right? The 7th ranked team in the league, according to my great analytic breakdown. But the point being, they're in the conversation. Can they stay hot at the right time of the season?
Right, I agree, and I'm going to go to DaveHighAnalytics.com and check out your work there. But look, I think we can expect. I like it, baby. That's very official. That's very 21st century of you to have that legal pad there.
That's why I haven't figured out a spreadsheet yet. I need someone to help me out with that.
We're together on that.
I use Excel. I just don't know how to pump all these numbers into it.
That's right, but nobody knows that, so that's all right. That's all right. Look, I think you're right about Tua answering the questions, and really one of the big questions coming into the season. I have my doubts about whether he could throw deep and whether he could make good decisions, but from an organization standpoint, is this guy our franchise quarterback? Are we going to extend his contract? And right now, they'd be crazy not to, right?
Well, you don't have to answer that question now, though.
You don't.
You're not going to hand him a contract right now. You're not going to hand him one, I wouldn't think, at the end of the season. You still got 2 more years. So why? There are questions of health. We haven't gone into. They're going to play in New England and Buffalo in cold weather and windy games. Look, there's normal questions that have to be answered, and there's a normal progression. Arizona gave Kyler Murray a contract after 3 years. It's looking like the dumbest move ever. Why do that? Why handcuff yourself when you don't have to? And so if I'm the Dolphins, I let this run its course and make the contract after the 4th year would be you really are okay. Let's go to the table then.
Well, Dave, let's talk about kind of that, a parallel topic, and we're going to get a little bit more into that later on this segment. And let's go out to our first Twitter question of the day, and we always appreciate when you guys send us the Twitter questions. We ask for them, and you come through, and this is kind of Tua related. This question comes to us from Mr. Redbeard. And the question is this Dolphins run game sustainable? Is this offensive line slowly becoming a difference maker? I haven't seen line play like this since the unicorn line of 2016. And Dave, the reason I'm asking this is because this is tied into Tua's success and whether you're going to extend them and everything else like that. But I'll go first here. The run game, I do think is sustainable, especially because you added Jeff Wilson. That's a good 1-2 combination of the speed of Raheem Mostert, the physical presence of Jeff Wilson, a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield, a guy who loves to block. And the one word that you hear associated with Jeff Wilson is energy. The coaches, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the offensive line, everybody says energy. And is the offensive line slowly becoming a difference maker? I think Teron Armstead is the difference maker on that offensive line. And that's not to take anything away from, the guys who have stepped in and played, not only the starters, but Greg Little as a substitute, Robert Jones as a substitute, Brandon Shell as a substitute. I don't know. The offensive line is doing a great job. They've kept Tua clean and they've kept him upright. Are they a difference maker? I'm not sure. I think the quarterback, the receivers, and the running game is a difference maker, but obviously the offensive line ties into all of that. What is the run game sustainable? Is the offensive line slowly becoming a difference maker?
Yeah, the offensive line. Look, you wanted improvement through the first half of the year, and it is at worst, it's an average offensive line now. Right. I mean, okay, they've given up 2 sacks in the last 4 games. They've opened holes for the running game. So my whole question at the start of the year was, look, you have Mike McDaniel, who was a running game coordinator in San Francisco. You have Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator, who is the offensive line coach with the Rams. You go down the list of guys on this staff, and their strength, or a lot of the meat of their portfolio is as run game or offensive line coaches. And if they couldn't figure it out, I'd throw my hands up in the air. Because my belief is you get who have some talent, who are smart, and you should be able to make an offensive line in the NFL. And that's what they're doing. Connor Williams has been a great decision to move to center. When they got him and his career was a guard and they're moving him to center, you're like, well, okay, they must see something because and it's worked out great. He's played very well. Every line needs an anchor, and that's what Armstead is. Is the running game sustainable? Well, it's sustainable if the defense is like the previous game against Cleveland decide to take away Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They're going to say, we're so scared of these guys. They're our whole concentration, and you beat us with anybody else. And so Tua through to, 3 other guys had 4 catches. Jeff Wilson had a big running game. Again, I guess I'm going to keep going back to it. These are some of the worst defenses in the league they've been playing. Okay. And so is it sustainable? What do you mean by sustainable? Can they go into San Francisco against a very good defensive line and move that defensive line? Let's wait. That's waiting for them out there. Okay. They've shown that what good offenses do is they beat up on bad defenses. They've done that. Now they're going to go up in weight class, and we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. Won't be this week against Houston.
No, it won't. No, it won't. That's the thing. And look, and let's be clear about one thing. We can overlook Houston, you and me. The Dolphins can't. And I don't think that they will. Mike McDaniel has kept them pretty focused, but everything I say today is pretty much going to be assuming a Houston victory on Sunday. So I just want to put that out there for everybody. And
we've reached that point in the year. We assume victories for the Dolphins. That's like, how many years we're waiting to say something like that? I mean, but you're right. Houston's awful. And the Dolphins coming off a bye week should be, as rested and healthy as possible.
And so, Hyde, as we continue talking about Tua, we kind of touched on it, but how much does pass protection factor into Tua's success? How about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle's health? How about running back Jeff Wilson and the running game? Look, all of those are huge factors. Tua's playing well, but it all works together. I'm not saying that if one of those things wasn't there, Tua wouldn't be playing well. I don't think he'd be playing as well, but they all work together. But I will say this. I expect Tua to keep balling. Now, not at the 3 touchdowns to 0 interceptions rate every single game, but the accuracy, the decision-making, those are things that I expect Tua to keep doing, things he can do on his own. And the offense scoring 39 points like they did last week with a minimal contribution from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I don't know if that's going to continue, but I do think that Tua will continue playing well, and things such as pass protection, good health from the top 2 receivers, and Jeff Wilson in the running game, that elevates the Dolphins to playoff and maybe win a playoff game level. That's what I think. But these other factors, Hyde, how much are they responsible for Tua's success and the offense's success?
You cannot value Tyreek Hill.
Right.
You just can't. I was at a practice. I don't think I've told this story here. I was at a practice and in August, and bumped into Chris Spielman, the former Dolphin GM, Minnesota GM. We were leaving practice, bumped into him. Hey, what do you think? He goes, wow, Tyreek Hill. All he talked about, his speed, how hard he works, how he puts fear into anybody who's covering him. And you see it every Sunday. Okay. He's the one who's given space. In the NBA, one of the great things is spacing. We got to move this guy here, space the defense out. Well, Tyreek Hill brings that concept to the NFL, to what he does to defenses and secondaries, moving them back, making them scared of, what he can do if he wants to go deep. And that opens up the field and the passing lanes and the routes for so many others. And again, I can't undervalue him. I don't know who would be the MVP right now, Tyreek Hill or Tua if you're voting. But and then McDaniel, really, his concepts, his schemes. I've always said, Perk, you need them both,
right?
Coach, and you need the talent. And you go down the line of teams that have one or the other, and they're either short-term successes or you're sitting there struggling and pointing fingers at the quarterback if he doesn't have a coach, or the coach if he doesn't have a quarterback. And this year so far, it's been a perfect marriage.
It has, and that leads me to another question here. And what is the role of Mike McDaniel and his positive influence in his dynamic offense? Because I think it's been huge.
Well, again, he came in here. Look at the mess he inherited.
Right.
I mean, you look at it's the same mess it's been for years, only worse this year. I mean, they wanted Sean Payton as head coach. They wanted Tom Brady as the quarterback. Okay, I mean that's definitive. Okay, and it's in lawsuits. Okay, so to a place you're not the number one choice. You haven't been a head coach. You're not your typical NFL head coach. But what's he do? The first thing he does is put his arms around Tua, says, "You're my man." Puts injecting confidence and belief in him. But he also brings system works, and not it is the San Francisco system, but it's tweaked to what do they do best? Speed. Right. We have speed on the outside. How do we take advantage of that? And you look at running the same alignment, and they run 5 different plays out of it. And so a lot of simple concepts that they've, brought in some complex ideas and everything that have worked. And again, that combination of talent and coaching and scheme has been missing here.
Right. And Hyde, we're going to go out to our other Twitter question for this segment. And I'm going to tell you right now, before I ask this question, I'm just going to say Chad Pennington. So here's our question from at CJB8511. The question is, when was the last time a Dolphins quarterback threw the ball downfield and us as fans were expecting a completion every time?
That's the only year you can really point to.
It is.
Tannehill in 2016 was reaching that point when he got hurt.
Yep.
He was reaching. I remember game out, I believe, against the Los Angeles Rams, where he looked very good in the fourth quarter, driving the team down the field. Yep. He was just getting to that point because they had a good offensive line. But the larger point is they're few and far between. You sit there exactly. and said, "Oh yeah, I like what's going on here."
Yeah, I agree. And look, again, the Tua accuracy was something that well, I'll say this, Hyde, and see if you agree with this, but I think the Tua that we see now is the Alabama Tua. It's the tank for Tua. It's the guy that they thought that they were going to get with the number 1 pick of the draft. If they would have had it, and if he wouldn't have had that hip injury at Alabama. But I think that's the version of Tua that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and the previous 2 years you haven't seen that now.
Right.
And for a lot of reasons. The main one, we've gone through these. Flores not believing in him. Right. It was mystifying he couldn't beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick to me, and a good offense. That offense had the most points in the Dolphins since 1985. So, we don't need to go back down all those roads again, do we? But the larger point is, I agree with you completely. This is a guy that they thought they drafted, okay, right. And they've got to that. They've got there. It's been a long and winding and tortuous road at times. But now we'll see going forward. Just certainly in the last half of the season, because they play a lot of good defenses. San Francisco, they play the Jets and the Patriots. Jets and Patriots aren't good teams, but they're very good defenses. Right. And so the Bills, obviously. So there's some good defenses coming up that are going to present some challenge.
All right, so that'll take us through segment 1. Before we head into segment 2, Hyde, how was the book signing with Jimmy Johnson at Books and Books for the Swagger book there over your left shoulder?
This one?
That's the one.
No, it was great. It was great. We went to it was a Miami Book Fair, and
that's it. Right.
there are probably like 300 to 400 people there, and Jimmy was on. We had a lot of laughs, a lot of fun talking about, just the name Swagger, first of all, and how it fits him. And then a lot of his stories, there's a lot of psychology to Jimmy. Right. One of the stories he tells is Super Bowl in Dallas. He had the youngest team, and everybody is saying they're going to get crushed by Buffalo. This was before Buffalo lost 4 in a row, and he put a plank down, a 2x4, had Troy Aikman walk across it, had other guys walk across it. See how easy that is? And he goes, now let's put the 2x4 10 feet in the air. And everybody's like, oh, don't fall, don't fall. And that's the idea he brought, to tell the Cowboys, look, we know we can beat this team on the air. Now we're going to be raised on the platform, everybody looking at us, but just keep your mind in the right place. And so, Jimmy's always fascinating to talk to.
Right, he is. That's a great anecdote. Jimmy, yeah, he is the master psychologist, isn't he? It's just amazing, just amazing. All right, Hy, let's migrate into segment 2 here. And look, what we're going to talk about here is how seriously should we take this Dolphins win streak considering the opponents. Now, look, and we know that this is the soft part of the schedule, right? And none of the teams that they've beaten during this 4-game win streak has won more than 4 games. You had Pittsburgh at 3-7, Detroit, which is now 4-6, Chicago, which is 3-8, Cleveland at 3-7. Houston coming up this week is 1-8-1. So, how seriously do you take this win streak, and does it mean anything to be in first place on November 22nd?
Yes, it means something. You know how long we waited to see a Dolphin team go into the last part of the year where they are everybody, in 2008 when they won the division, they climbed up in the last few weeks and won a game in I can still see that locker room in New York when they won that game, with that celebration. So look, does beating bad teams mean something? Yeah, it means something in the NFL. Absolutely. Because you see every week teams losing games they shouldn't have. Detroit's won 3 in a row now since they fired their defensive backs coach after the Dolphins took them apart. Look, any of these individual wins maybe doesn't mean a whole lot, but if you link 3, 4, 5 wins back to back to back, it tells you you're getting a consistent performance, and that's really between a good team and a great team is consistency, playing consistently. This is what makes good seasons.
Right, I agree. And look, yeah, to me, there's value in winning and a single game. And then when you put it together and you see what the Dolphins have done with Tua, with the pass protection. Again, we talked about this team has found different ways to win, right? And so if you just look at some of the games on this streak, like Chicago, where they shut the Bears out in the second half after Justin Fields is running for an NFL regular season quarterback record on them. And Cleveland, the most complete game of the season. We see the pass protection where Tua's been sacked, I believe it's twice in the last 3 games. So we're seeing things like this where we saw them score 39 points last week with a minimal contribution from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I believe 9 receptions between the two of them. So I do think that there's serious value in this win streak. Of course, it's not. If you want to go apples and oranges, I guess it's like winning games in the ACC compared to winning games in the SEC. But there's still value in it. And look, here's the other thing that I will point to validate this win streak. If anybody wants to take anything away from it, this team did beat New England, Baltimore, and Buffalo to start the season, right? And so there's value in that. And so that also tells you that, okay, they've beaten up on these bad teams, but they've also beaten some good teams. And they got off to that 3-0 start before the offense was really in gear, before the offensive line and pass protection was going. That they weren't the Dolphins team that we see now back then. So I think you see improvement. And to me, that's kind of what this win streak says, is that there's focus and there's improvement. You win on the road. Yes, Detroit and Chicago are not great teams, but it does take some focus to not overlook those teams. Those teams were able to score points. The Dolphins were able to kind of recenter themselves and pull out road victories. So I think that there's tremendous value in what we've seen. And I'll ask you this also. Where do you think the Dolphins rank at this point in the AFC? I mean, Kansas City is 8-2, Buffalo is 7-3, Tennessee is 7-3, Baltimore 7-3, and then you've got New England, the Jets, and Cincinnati all at 6-4. Nobody is way ahead of them, but there are teams right on their heels. Where do the Dolphins rank at this point in the AFC?
Well, look, Kansas City has consistently been about, and I still put Buffalo up there. I get they've lost games in freaky fashion. The Dolphin game, they dominated that game statistically, and I get that the Dolphins won the game. I'm not taking that away, Dolphin fans, but that was a statistical anomaly. Okay, it was an outlier, and the way they lost to Minnesota was freaky. Now, so I put Buffalo and Kansas City together at the top. And after that, there's a few teams that the Dolphins are right there. I think Baltimore is going to be there. The Dolphins. Who else am I missing from the AFC? I don't put New England or the Jets there. They're one-dimensional freak shows, as you saw on Sunday, and it was just a brutal game to watch. Both teams took the quarterback out of the game and waited for the other team to make a mistake. And Robert Saleh made the mistake. He punted down the middle of the field when he should have punted out of bounds. And that right there. But the Jets and the Patriots, the Jets don't have a quarterback. The Patriots, I don't know about their quarterback. He was better last year. Maybe it's coaching. Yeah. I don't know. But anyways, I put the Dolphins right in the second tier, right behind them, right behind the Chiefs and Bills.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that right now they've shown that they're better than the others. Baltimore is always tough. There's that thing about Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. We'll see how that turns out. But I would agree. I would have the Dolphins at number 3 or no worse than tied for number 3 at this point. Let's go back out here to Twitter. And as we're talking about this Dolphins team and, where they are in the AFC, they did make 2 significant moves at the trade deadline. And, our question comes to us from, I'm gonna mess this up. Comes to us from at Kostarich. I don't know if that's right. Rich, that's who it is. But the question is the trade for Bradley Chubb an indication the team may be shifting philosophies and money to the pass rush instead of the secondary?
Well, look, they'd already done that shift. Jalen Phillips and Emmanuel Ogbah, they put a lot of money. Christian Wilkins, they put money, certainly they were going the New England way at the start with Brian Flores, where you invest in the secondary. But the shift had already come, and this even makes it more pronounced that they're putting more money into the pass rush.
Yeah, and look, there are different ways to win games, right? In this league, and defensively, there are different ways. And last year, the Dolphins were doing a lot of it from back to front with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, and now we're seeing them try to do it from front to back with this pass rush. And look, the pass rush is a really exciting thing because if you look at the possibilities that they have up there with those 3 speedy pass rushers, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Mel Ingram, and I say speedy, they're not all speed guys. They're just guys who can get to the quarterback. But I think the possibilities are very exciting there, and that kind of leads us to our next Twitter question when we're talking about the defense. And this Twitter question comes to us from @MedinaMagic236. It's a question we hear all the time. What's the word on Byron Jones? And really, oh my God. I know. And you know what? And we ask Mike McDaniel this question every week. And at this point, Hyde, and we've been saying this for a few weeks, you've got to count backwards now, don't you? Like, will he be ready for the finale? And you've got to think, well, it'll probably take him 4 weeks, to, maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks, we could say. 2 weeks.
He has 21 days of practice before they have to.
Right. But to be in game shape, like, 1 week of practice or 2 weeks of practice in one game, whatever. And so you start counting backwards, from the season finale and start, how much can Byron help us? Of course, there's going to be playoffs, but the word on Byron Jones is frustration. And that's, I'm sure that's from both parties, from the Dolphins and Byron Jones. You had a way that you were going to play, and you thought Byron was going to be ready from the Achilles surgery that he had in March for the season opener. That has not happened. He has not been out there on the practice field yet. And so the word on Byron Jones is frustration. And as you say, the Dolphins are finding another way to get it done defensively. It's not coming from those two lockdown corners. It's going to come from the pass rush right now. And what do you think how do you think this team has shifted gears defensively in light of how they wanted to play coming into the season?
Well, it's not just Byron Jones, but yeah, I mean, it starts with him. Then you know, Nick Needham, they lost. Brandon Jones, they lost. The secondary's been hit with injuries, and thank God for Kader Kohu, the undrafted rookie who's played very well. He's had a few rookie mistakes, but I don't think anybody, when they signed him, even the Dolphins, although Josh Boyer went out of his way, he saw him and he pointed him out to Chris Greer. He said, I want to talk to him, probably to get a read on just who he was getting, and they signed him and he stepped in and that's one of those signings that is bigger because of injuries than anybody expected. And, but if I'm holding out all hope for Byron Jones, if I'm the Dolphins, because if he would come back a month from now with 3 games to go and get ready, because we all know in the playoffs, you're not going to be facing these lollipop offenses at times. Okay. Everybody in the playoffs is pretty much able to do things. Okay. And so, absolutely. I would hold out all hope, but I keep holding out hope. The question I have with Byron Jones is, did they know in August it's going to be into December before has he re-injured himself? We're not really, the story, there's a story out there that will get told after the season or when Byron Jones signs with somebody else after this year.
Yeah, and it's a big loss. It really is a big loss, but you do have to take your hats off to the Dolphins for continuing to find guys who can answer the bell back there in the secondary. When you mentioned Kader Kohu, but guys like Keon Crossan and Justin Bethel and Verone McKinley, Clayton Fejedelem.
I don't hear you saying Noah Igbinoghene.
Noah, that's another. The guy won. He essentially won the Pittsburgh game, right, with that interception. So you don't have to do it every, for 8 straight games. That's what, to me, that's the impressive thing about what this secondary and the coaching staff has showed, is that it's really a game by game thing. And if Clayton Fejedelem and Justin Bethel, the special teams guys, can play a role in this week's game plan, they will. I didn't mention Eric Rowe. That's another one. If Eric Rowe can do it for this game. And so I think the mix and match thing has again, you take your hat off to Mike McDaniel and Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinator, and Sam Madison, who coaches the secondary, Steve Gregory, who coaches the safeties. They've done a really good job of finding this guy's skills match this opponent in our game plan. So he's going to get 40 snaps this week, and next week he might only get 10 or 12. So I think that, they the players, it always starts with the players, so they get the credit for that also. But it's been an interesting win streak. And I think you do have to take it seriously, and you have to take the Dolphins seriously. And speaking of that, let's migrate on over to segment 3. And are you allowing yourself to dream big, Dolphins fans? If the Dolphins win this week, or when the Dolphins win this week, right? Can we say that? They're going to be 8-3 in a 17-game season. I mean, could you say that 10 wins are in the bag if you get that? Can you say that 11 wins are in the bag if you say that? If you're 8-3, you go 500 the rest of the way, you finish 11-6. You've got 2 home games that are should work for you, right? Against Green Bay on Christmas Day and against the New York Jets in the season finale. So you do have that ramp to 10 wins or 11 wins if you win this week. Hyde, how big should Dolphins fans allow themselves to dream right now?
Well, I think 10 wins would be a disappointment, Perk, at this point. I mean, let's be honest. They're going to go to 8-3 this week, so 2-4 to the end. I mean, that would be a disappointment, right? I mean, look, what you're looking at right now is how to win the AFC East, because you want a bye, you want home field. These are the things you're playing for now, okay? And a lot of that's going to come down to the game at Buffalo. If they win at Buffalo and they go any tiebreaker scenario, now that they've got every tiebreaker scenario basically over Buffalo, okay? So, you know, these are the gifts that we haven't really talked about in years: home field playoffs, you know, staying away from a game at Kansas City or at Buffalo until it would be for an AFC championship if it comes to that. So, so the question is, you know, to me, 10 wins would be a disappointment here. It would say that, okay, they start to falter at the end of the year.
Yeah,
12 games. If they get to 12 games, that means, okay, they're on. And I think they probably will need 12 to win the division.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, Hyde, at that point, 12 wins and more, you start expecting a first round playoff victory. Nothing is guaranteed, but you because they would have showed you throughout the season that they're that good. Now it would depend on,
Perk, I still got the scars from all these years expecting a playoff victory.
I know. I know it. I know they're deep scars. They're deep scars, Hyde, but they will heal at some point, right? They will heal, I believe. But I would say this, that nothing is guaranteed. So all of these comments come with reasonable health. There's going to be injuries the rest of the way, but with reasonable health, yeah, they moved to 8-3 this week, and at that point, yeah, I mean, 10 wins should be in the bag. You're probably looking at 11, 12 victories at that point after they get this victory Sunday. That's what I would think. Hyde, let's go out to our Twitter question, because this is a good one. This is a good one, and it's one that I think that a lot of people have asked themselves, and this one comes to us from at CF3 long-87, Craig. And the question is, you both have covered football for a long time. How has the success of Mike McDaniel this year changed your opinion of what or who a head coach has to be? I'll tell you, as quirky as McDaniel is, Hyde, the guy is personally, the guy is a refreshing football coach who's got lots of X's and O's knowledge, and so far has showed he's got great people skills. And I think that both of those have gone hand in hand in making the Dolphins success. That this is a guy who I don't think that we've seen him take any player to task publicly. Now, I'm sure they do it in film session, but it's always been support, whether it's been Tua at the start of the season or kicker Jason Sanders right now. He puts his arm around these guys, like you said, that there's not the public calling them out and all that kind of stuff. McDaniel does this with positive reinforcement. And so I think that McDaniel has really, for me, he showed me that a football coach can come in any way. And we'll see if that's true with Jeff Saturday. And it hasn't been true with some others. You remember, Les Steckel, the guy from Minnesota, to bring up a way old guy who came in with kind of militaristic discipline, and that didn't work. But I really think that Mike McDaniel kind of has his finger on the pulse of the 20-year-olds of today. And he knows what makes these guys click. And look, whether they win a playoff game or not this season, we're this close to calling the season a success, right? If they make the playoffs, the season is a success.
No.
Kurt,
if they don't make the playoffs, No. Hi, I said if they make the playoffs, the season is a success. They don't have to win a playoff game. To me, that's the readjusted goal. If they win 11 or 12 games, but where you started this year, you get in the playoffs. Right. That's a success. Well, and the larger thing is they solved. It looks here in the end of November like they solved some of the big questions. Can Tua play quarterback? Can they get this offensive line fixed? questions that have taunted or really had problems for this franchise for years. But as much as I like what McDaniel's done, as much as I think he's the MVP of the whole organization right now, let's put these brakes on a little. In 2000 when Dave Wanstad was here, he went 11-5 his first year, and everybody's like, "Wow, okay, they won a playoff game. Things are going." Tony Sperano, 2008, they went from 1-15 to the AFC East title, and everybody, the playoffs. Wow, they got it. They're moving the right. Adam Gase, 2016, same thing. He took over for dead Joe Philbin and went to the playoffs his first year, and Brian Tannehill was fixed. And it depends on what question you're asked. Am I impressed by Mike McDaniel so far? Absolutely. Again, I think he's the MVP of the organization to this date. Now, if we're talking bigger picture, who is he going to be? Let's plan Super Bowl championships and all that stuff. Let's put the brakes on a little. Maybe the second year is a better read. I don't know. He's solved like some of the big questions.
Yeah, and the Twitter question was, has he changed your opinion of who or what a coach has to be? And I to me, again, he's moved the line to me because again, his approach with the putting your arm around guys, and if you're of a certain age, we'll just say my age and your age, coaches yelled at you, right, to get you to correct behavior. They yelled at you, and Mike McDaniel, again, he might yell when we don't see it, but the sense of humor at the podium, even during the 3-game losing streak, and that was something that I wondered about. You're 3-0, or it's training camp, everything is cute and funny, but what if you lose back-to-back games, or if you lose 3 in a row? He was the same Mike McDaniel, and here we are in the heat of the season, and Jason Sanders has hit a rough patch. Puts his arm around him. He's not bringing in kickers. He's not saying, well, blah blah blah. He came up with the thing about the wind in Chicago on a 29-yard field goal. How many coaches would do that? And so those are the things that when you say, has it changed my opinion of what a coach has to be? I did think that, you kind of do need to yell at guys and get on them and show them how important it is. But McDaniel, to me, has moved that line a little bit. So from that standpoint,
it was interesting to me in training camp when Preston Williams threw a fit one day that he wasn't getting enough balls thrown his way, and called out, told the media and those stories, and McDaniel's response was, we probably do need to get him the ball, but he's part of that too. He didn't. There wasn't a big pushback. Now, We've seen him. We've seen the intelligence. We've seen his ability to talk to people, a sense of humor, all that. At some point, there will be a time he's got to push back. He's got to confront. And I remember Sean Payton says that was the one thing he really had to learn as a coach, that it's healthy to confront people. Now McDaniel has said, okay, look, this isn't up. We got to do better here. You're letting your teammates down on. He's talked about, and other players have talked about, watching film. Pointing out a player, if you do that, you're letting your teammates down on this play. So he has called out players, but there's going to be a time where confrontation is, a tool he's definitely going to have to use more than he has so far.
Yeah, but do you think he'll take it public? Like he might have used it already and probably has. We just don't know, and that's kind of where, to me, he's a bit different.
Yeah, I've always said from the start, I hope he succeeds because I want there to be room in the NFL for a coach who talks openly for the most part, shows a sense of humor. And look, I think most coaches are positive and optimistic, although Bill Belichick has put a damper on that philosophy. But so I think there's room for that, but his the way he's not afraid to say things and joke around is I think I've always thought it's a Pete Carroll way to do things, right. But probably with more sense of humor than Pete Carroll has.
Right. Let me keep this in a very narrow focus here, but the refreshing approach reminds me of Stan Van Gundy with the Heat when Stan first took over, and Stan was very refreshing, and he was maybe
Stan Van Gundy. He would argue whether it's a cloudy day or a sunny day. He had strong opinions.
Right.
And I love Stan. Everybody loves covering Stan.
Right.
He was fun to talk to. Right.
He was great.
And from that regard, I get what you're saying. You're right with
just a different approach.
McDaniel.
Yeah, a different approach. Hey, hi. Before we get to our prediction here, for the Dolphins Texans game, you were talking about it would be tough to pick an MVP for this team with Tyreek and Tua. Let me ask you something that it's going to be premature for this question because we've only seen Tyreek for 10 games, but we both covered some dudes down here, right? And whether it's Dan Marino or Dwayne Wade or LeBron James or Shaq or whoever, Zach Todd, we've covered some dudes. Is Tyreek starting to approach that level? And I know it's only been 10 games, and Tyreek is not a Hall of Famer like these others. I see his approach and his uniqueness, and what I mean by his uniqueness is, when you look at some other dudes down here, Jason Taylor, you couldn't stop this guy from getting to the quarterback, right? And Dwayne Wade, you couldn't stop this guy from getting to the rim. Tyreek, how do you defend this guy? And so that from that standpoint, this guy can do pretty much whatever he wants to on the football field. So I'm just wondering, is he starting to approach an elite list of South Florida athletes? And again, it's only been 10 games. We haven't seen him in the playoffs, but to me, this guy is trending in that direction. And with his body of work in Kansas City also, let's not leave that out. But to me, he's trending in direction of he's going to be one of those guys in South Florida. Your thoughts?
Well, he's there. I mean, he's
already
there from the first day with the Dolphins when he changed the way he works was staggering.
Yep.
Now, the difference between him and a Dwayne Wade, Jason Taylor, Marino, we saw people who were here. I wasn't here for the start of Marino, but you saw these guys come in and work and saw their body of work develop.
Right.
Jason Taylor, Jimmy and Jason tell the story about year 3 with Jason, and 7 games in, he didn't have a sack. And Jimmy started a meeting saying, everybody's the team sitting before him, and he says, "Has anybody seen Jason Taylor?" And Jason's like, he goes, "Jimmy, where's Jason Taylor?" And Jason raises his hand. He's always sitting where he always does. And Jimmy looks the other side. "Has anybody seen Jason Taylor?" And Jason stands up, "Coach, I'm here." And he goes, "Hey," Jimmy says, if anybody's seen Jason, tell him the season started 7 games ago. So there is a growth message. You got Tyreek Hill as a star. Okay. And
right.
This might be the year that Hall of Fame, nomination comes up. You look at, because he's right on track to break the receiving record. Okay.
Yep.
He is on a track for a Hall of Fame career.
Yep.
He's the one guy, he's the guy who from the time he came in, he said, Tua is the most accurate guy I've played with. Tua is the star. Tua is the leader. He deferred. He gave to a lot of players, and I'm sure this was a game plan inside. Give Tua the mantle because he needs it. He needs to have the pat on the back. He needs everybody to put his arm around him because of what's happened the previous 2 years where he got beat up. So Tyreek, but his game is at a different level than other. I mean, I did a column earlier on Mark Duper and Mark Clayton,
right,
and about Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and they're both like, well, Waddle's good. He's going to be a great player, but let's not put him in the category of Tyreek Hill, right? Yeah. What Tyreek Hill is doing is scaring defenses every time he steps out on the field.
Right. That guy is, he's just incredible. I did ask him a few weeks ago if he's thought about Canton, and he deferred and he said, no, it's not time to think about that. And, when it's time, I'll think about that. But right now, I'm just privileged to be able to play the game that I love and where I came from. I wasn't sure, and, 5th round pick, and everybody thought I was going to be a return specialist. And so he kind of went down that road, which is good, but yeah,
I've always wanted to, Omar and I would argue this. I love covering diva athletes. Dwayne Wade was a diva.
Yeah.
He needed be the, go out with his attitude, and I loved it. I loved that because it's a superstar with a superstar attitude that and I think Tyreek Hill has that attitude too. He's that guy. Look at me. Look what I do.
Right. And then referring to himself as Cheetah and all of that. Yeah, it's Tyreek, he's a breath of fresh air around here also. On top of being an incredibly talented athlete. I was just, I just asked you because he's moving into that list of South Florida greats. He hasn't been here that long enough, but yeah, and you say he's already there, but yeah, the dude is absolutely incredible to cover. All right, Hyde, it's prediction time. We got Dolphins and Texans, 1 o'clock at Hard Rock Stadium on Sunday. The humidity should not be a factor, I don't think. I've just kind of glanced at the weather, but I haven't really looked at it. So they're not going to need humidity to beat the Texans. I'm going Dolphins 34-20. The win streak goes up to 5 games. And here's the thing, Buffalo is at Detroit, so they'll probably win and also go to 8-3 and continue to share first place in the AFC East. But the Dolphins game is a lock, Dave Hyde. What are you thinking? I probably shouldn't have said that. What are you thinking?
I'm with you. This is the easiest game on the schedule for them. Houston's 1-8-1. No other team in the league has won fewer than 3 games, and they're falling apart. They're questioning now, do they keep their quarterback? Do they bench him? And all the things that bad teams go through, which Dolphins are conversant in that topic, because for years they were the team that are about to turn December. What do you do about the quarterback? You want to keep the coach, what's going on here? So you look at the statistics and analytics, and Houston's at the bottom of everything you're looking at. Okay, certainly the bottom third. But at the bottom of points scored, points given up, the bottom line categories. And so let's make it 37-17. It'll be a blowout.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one.
Did I just pick a 20-point game? I can't believe I picked a 20-point game, but it's out there. So.
I know, right? Well, you aren't putting your mortgage on it, are you?
No, I'm not putting any money on it.
All right, there we go. By the way, I thought it was a good thing last week where, and this seems small, where Mike McDaniel puts Skylar Thompson in at the end of the game. So often in the NFL, we see these quarterbacks, even in blowouts, they're staying in the game and they want to take every snap. And, it was good to recognize the potential for disaster if there's a sack and a bad sack. And to get Skylar some extra snaps. Teddy Bridgewater was not active. He had a knee injury, but just a very small thing. Another thing I like about McDaniel.
The Peyton Mannings and Tom Brady's refused to let their backup take a snap because they didn't want them to get experience, to get better. They wanted to make sure that they had the job. That tells you the insecurity factor of an NFL quarterback when Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, no, we're not getting any snaps to the backup.
Right, so let's put 2 ahead of them, right? From then,
maybe you haven't figured that out yet.
Right, exactly. All right, so that's Dolphins deep dive for this week. That's your boy Dave Hyde. I'm your boy Perk. We'll check in with you next week. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.
Eat your cramp.